Inspired me, awake, and hit me with a hand of broken nails. Welcome to the Jams D Podcast 1991 Retrospective, where we talk about albums that are turning 30 from the incredible year of 1991. Last week on the 1991 Retrospective, we covered the Grunge Titan, the biggest album of 1991. We covered Nirvana's Nevermind, which that's kind of an important video to watch if you want to get a full picture of the 1991 grunge scene, as well as our videos on Pearl Jam's 10 and Temple of the Dog. This will be the closer to that little narrative arc, as well as the 1991 retrospective as a whole. So we are talking about some shit today, and thankfully we get to talk about my favorite record of 2000. Good job, Jake. Of 1991 in general, Soundgarden's "BADMOTORFINGER." I don't know what that title means. I don't know if I want to know
I
what
just
it
imagine
means.
like a bikie, like who's just got like a really like chode middle finger and just like throwing it up. I think actually there's a thing on the Wikipedia page that speaks about briefly about the origin for this album being like a joke on the Montrose song "Bad Motor Scooter" that Kim Thale came up with, just because it sounded like colorful and aggressive.
Bad Motor Scooter is so much lamer. I don't know why. It's still kind of silly sounding. Bad Motor Scooter.
And like, I mean, if you think about it, "Bad Motor Finger" should be a lame title as well, but for some reason it's just kind of badass, especially because it's just one word.
Yeah,
it's just
And
kind of
the
like,
album art is dope as fuck.
oh, the album art
So-
is like some fucking, it's the album art's like almost intimidating to me when I was a teenager, because it looked like something that would be too hard for me to handle when I first encountered it. But no, indeed, let's get into it.
yeah. I like that it's
Well,
all one word.
Yeah.
If it was
Yeah.
separated, I feel like you would say it different, like "bad motor finger," and
Bad
it's not
motor
badass.
finger.
But if you're like "bad motor finger," hell yeah.
Why not?
Let's start.
Well, we don't have Morgan with us today, unfortunately, the grunge mainstay, but I think we can do a good job of filling in the gaps here, because all three of us are pretty big fans of this record. I'm just gonna say off the bat. And well, I mean, there's not, I mean, granted, if you've watched that video, you know most of the context going into this.
Yes.
Temple of the Dog and this being within the same year. Which was released first? I actually don't know.
Temple of the Dog came first.
Okay.
But yeah, which is why we did it. We're lucky that we
That's
managed
right.
to do it earlier. Temple of the Dog came
That's
in
right.
April. I have a slight apology to give as well, which is the fact that I sequenced this retrospective mistakenly believing that this album came out on the same day as Nevermind and and Blood Sugar Sex Magic and Low End Theory. And actually I found out this week that it was only originally meant to come out on that day, but it was actually postponed, I think, 3 weeks. So it actually came out in October, but we're doing it now anyway. I don't think it matters, but that's just a point of clarification, since I think I've said multiple times that it was released on the same day. But anyway, it was certainly overshadowed to a certain extent by Nevermind, for reasons that we got into last week in terms of that record's impact. But obviously this is a very different type of record, even if it does sit within that same scene pretty clearly. It's a record that takes much more from heavy metal and various versions of metal that had kind of come to prominence in the 80s and infuses them within this kind of Seattle scene, sort of like dreary dourness, as opposed to like angry, thrashy, new wave of British heavy metal type aggressive attitude of those 80s bands. This is characterized, and Soundgarden in general are characterized, by taking some of those musical aesthetics and just dousing them in like misery and like just the most kind of like gut-wrenching emotional shit. And you know what, our Temple of the Dog discussion's a really good primer, because you can very, very much hear the same sorts of things, emotionally, sonically, that were being channeled on that record very much here. Although I would say that, and I think that we would all be able to agree, that this is a record that focuses those aesthetics and tones into much more classic songs across the board, and is quite invigorating and punchy and just generally consistently thrilling. in a way that record is only occasionally, because that record is much more kind of like moody, whereas this has that moodiness, but it's also like punchy and really aggressive and really in your face as well. And it's a beautiful balance of those things. And a big part of it is to do with, of course, the production of Terry Date, who would go on to produce all of Deftones' most well-regarded records, or most of them at least. And so a figurehead in alternative metal production, and the general spaciousness that he gives to the sound of this record is the perfect complement to this increased focus in terms of arrangement and sharpness of songwriting that Chris Cornell, Kim Thale, Matt Cameron, and Ben Shepherd, the four primary musicians on this record, are giving to this album. It's not the first Soundgarden record, obviously, but it very much represents a kind of arrival into what is generally thought of as Soundgarden's definitive sound. Even if this is not, maybe somewhat commercially overshadowed by Super Unknown, which, always in my head, Super Unknown is such a 1991-92 record, but it actually came out in 94.
I have always thought the same thing, honestly, just because like I feel like a lot of these bands, particularly, these 1991 and grunge bands, like they seem to have like the two records that really live in the umbrella of the movement of the scene of the year. And one is usually about fundamentals, and the other is usually about refining them and maybe becoming a little bit weirder. You've got Nirvana, which has Nevermind, and then In Utero you have Pearl Jam, which have 10 and Vitology, and then you have Soundgarden here with this and Super Unknown. And I, of course, think everybody here likes Super Unknown. Is that album definitely feels like it should have come first, but I think it's really indicative of the fact that Soundgarden were the band in this scene right now that had been a unit the longest. Like they had come out of the late 80s. They had 2 albums before this. They played with sounds of metal, like doom metal, like Tyler said, those earlier acts kind of influenced them. I think the biggest influence here that was completely absent on other bands of this era would be that of Black Sabbath, where you blend heavy metal, the sort of new wave metal that was going on then, a little bit of psychedelic, a little bit of doom metal, and they sort of kind of take the torch popularity wise. And I feel like it shows, just because Badmotorfinger is a weird beast of an album. It's not as accessible as something like Super Unknown, which feels like maybe it was more the product of grunge and sort of like everything that was in that scene. Whereas I think Badmotorfinger, this isn't like to say that one is better than the other because of this, but Badmotorfinger feels a little bit more singular and of the scene that Soundgarden specifically came from, and not what they would eventually go and jump into.
Yeah. I think, we don't need to dwell on Super Unknown any longer, but my feeling is that I narrowly prefer Super Unknown because to me, that's just like a flooring front to back collection of some of the best songs that ever evolved out of the scene. But Badmotorfinger is in many ways like the more just kind of like the more thrilling headphones listen, the more kind of like immersive, intense and heavy experience from front to back. And to be honest, while this is a dark motherfucking record, the riffs and the riffage and the general composition on this album is utterly fucking irresistible. I am sucked into this fucker the second that Rusty Cage starts. That's one of my favorite little opening flourishes on any album ever. It's just that little
so great. And they just kind of hold it.
Yeah, it's weirdly tuned as well. Like I don't know much about guitar tuning, but I know that there's multiple songs in this record that are tuned in unconventional ways to create this very unique sound. We'll get to that shortly as well. But like there's this general guitar tone or tones across this record that have this really unique kind of disorienting, almost sometimes hypnotic, sometimes surreal, often really like dread inducing tonality to them that the band find through these unconventional approaches to the ways in which they incorporate their guitars and compose their melodies and the playing itself. There's a lot of technicality that Soundgarden have that's very visible, that yet feels like it doesn't quite get the level of appreciation that it deserves. Like when we think of the hallmarks of great grunge bands, like we think of Nirvana's subversion of cultural trends, and we think of their commentary on the vapidity of the post-80s, post-Reagan culture. We think of Pearl Jam, we think of the hard-on-sleeve emotionality of Eddie Vedder, and we think of his like immediately and beautifully relatable sensibilities as a performer. We think of a similar thing with Alice in Chains and their like just really kind of moody, dour stuff, but we overlook the most technically impressive band of the lot, which is Soundgarden, who I think have so much going for them as in terms of sheer musicianship talent, that because that might not be as interesting to think about as these other aspects of these other bands, it ends up with Soundgarden getting a little bit overlooked by comparison. Because, and it's a weird thing to say, like a band would be overlooked because they're too good, but they really are. Like, yeah. These are some of the most seasoned by this point, especially with all of the work they've done in other bands, much like what we see with Pearl Jam as well. These musicians are incredibly seasoned. They are incredibly invigorated at this particular point. And they have they're at this moment where they're just lightning in a bottle capturing. And the songs on this record are like beautiful iterations of that magic that they're able to tap into. And I mean, you get it straight away with that opening run of like the first four songs specifically, although it's definitely across the whole record. But those first four songs, my God, have mercy. Like not even, and I've talked about the technicality, or I've mentioned the technicality, and then you just have Chris Cornell, like, which technicality aside, the man's voice is inhumanly good. Like it's like what angel's dick did you suck to sing like this? like how Chris Cornell's doing things with his voice on this record that I legitimately didn't think were possible in heavy music. Like he is stretching and contorting, like he's doing this crooning, or he's doing this screaming, or he's like working within these different modes of intensity in his performance and modulating through them with such like dexterity as a vocal performer that it's kind of dizzying to experience him. I can't imagine what it would be like to see Soundgarden live. I've unfortunately, of course, never had that privilege, but the level of sheer complexity and just bewildering diversity of what he's able to do on this record, and I mean, it beggars belief.
I feel like we have done a good job at explaining why people like Eddie Vedder are great grunge vocalists, and Eddie's a bit more of a controversial figure because he's got, the stranger voice, the more memeable voice. So, and there's also sort of the unspoken talent that was Lane Staley in that same regard. And obviously we had praise to throw at Kurt Cobain for his vocal performances on Nevermind, but like, so I just want everybody to know on the table that it's like, they're all great and all, but in my eyes, at least, Chris has always been number one. I think not only in just this scene, but in the totality of rock music as a whole. Dude's top 3 vocalists of all time, easy. And depending on the day you might ask me, I might even be willing to say he's the best. And I mean, you said the word dynamic, and I think that's the best way to describe this entire record. There's the part on Rusty Cage where, it starts up and you have that moment where it's like I love the part where he goes into like the chorus refrain and then he's just like, I'm gonna break my rusty cage, and then the fucking bass breakdown of every time that happens, I'm like, shit.
The breakdown at the end of this song, like legitimately every time it happens. And I've heard this album, and I've heard this song specifically a lot because I experienced this album for the first time when I was 15, and I don't even think then I fully fathomed its excellence, and it's taken years for me to really fully appreciate it. But even then, songs like that and multiple others on this record, I was like, Jesus Christ, like
the bass is filthy. Like,
Yeah.
God bless.
Tell him.
Yeah,
God.
I mean,
Mm.
Connor, you're obviously our guest. What do you think of this album on the whole and this sound that Soundgarden have in particular here relative to everything that surrounds it?
Well, to be honest, I'm not much of a fan. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Rusty Cage, just from the beginning, like, Jesus Christ, like that. So, like, one thing I'm a big, I play guitar. I'm big into like different guitar sounds and different tunings and different effects.
So this album is like pornography for you.
Yes, precisely. It is. One thing, and I read this, like, the effect that like happens at the main riff in the beginning of Rusty Cage is like, I'm assuming we know what like a wah pedal is, which is one of the most famous effects on guitar. Just, Jimi Hendrix used it all the time. That's all over this record, especially in the solos. But for this song, you traditionally associate a sound like that to kind of move and have that weird like wow sound. But they turn it on and then they leave it in a position which gives this very strange like weird, almost like high filter effect, which gives this tension to that riff. And I absolutely love that. It's like it's a little thing. It's like a little effect, but it just adds so much to that part that it just wouldn't be the same without it. And
it gives like a slightly unpleasant tone as well. Like if we're talking like conventionally speaking, like there's just an unpleasant sort of like dissonant tonality to the way that sort of certain riffs kind of hang like in moments like that. And it's perfectly like heavy metal, right? Like it's textbook shit, but it's just really creative the way they capture that with this particularly unique sonic tool that not a unique tool, but like they use the tool in a unique way to give it the sound that feels very much like not quite like any other way that this tool has been used before. And
and like another thing that guitar wise that they do throughout this album is they experiment with different tunings, which can result in some really cool sounds. An amazing example would be Rusty Cage, obviously, the ending where they actually they have the lowest string I read like tuned down to a B, which if you play guitar, that's really low. Like, and you
feel that shit.
Yeah, and it's they don't like really emphasize that until the ending. And whenever I listen to the song, especially like the first time I heard it, like, oh, it's a badass rock song, it's going hard, great riffs, the bass is filthy, the drums are punchy, Chris Cornell is God, and then you think the song ends, but then all of a sudden just like just
it's
and
utterly,
it just crushes you.
It's almost like sludgy, doomy.
Yeah,
like it's a kind of sound you don't
feel the doom metal.
You do, yeah, exactly. It's a kind of aspect to their unique Soundgarden sound on this record you don't expect, I think, coming into it, which you've touched on as well. Like when you listen to the song, like badass rock song, and then that happens, and they channel that kind of tone on multiple different points on this record. Like I think we'll get to it, but like the last couple songs on this record in particular have a similar sort of like just doomy, upsetting darkness to the way the riff hits like that. But they leave it into the end of this opening track to kind of like flip the script on you, which is dope as shit. And it leads into, I think, one of the coolest and most creative songs in this record, in my opinion, which is Outshined, which I barely know what to do with, honestly. Like there's songs on this record that go kind of weirder and deeper and like more experimental, I guess. But this is like this most experimental like of the single tracks on this record, in my opinion. Like it has this classical heavy metal feel to its grinding dark riffage, but then the way it kind of climbs up to an almost pretty place for the "so now you know" refrain, like the guitars completely change at that point, and then they go back into that darker place. And Thale and Cornell together are doing these absolutely amazing things with the guitar interplay on this song. So yeah, Thale is the lead guitarist and Cornell's doing the kind of rhythm, and Thale's sort of soloing is amazing, and the melodic progressions and shifts within this song are bewildering, to be honest. And what I like about that, the way in which this song kind of goes to these really weird places that don't seem musically all that intuitively connected, is that it fits with the theme of the song, which is about Cornell's emotional instability and even like what could even be interpreted as bipolar disorder on this song, like the classic sort of line of "I'm looking California and feeling Minnesota." And
I love that fucking line so much. He
and just
delivers it with such emphasis, just the fucking feeling Minnesota.
Yeah, and so like
apologies to any viewers from Minnesota.
yeah, so it's like, so yeah, it's like, you know, these emotional instability or mood swings, as I guess they're termed, but you can interpret them in any different ways. And again, this, when Cornell gets really personal on songs like this and songs like the next song as well that we're going to talk about, and I mean a bunch of them, but yeah, it's that marriage of the music and Cornell and the way that they're kind of working together in that way is, I mean, I just love this song so much. I just adore it.
It's kind of wild that a song like Outshine came out in 91. Like I feel like this is a song that like when I hear that chorus, like "show me the," I'm like, this is something that Mastodon would do now. Like it's like it's such a great song, and it's like I've heard it on rock radio a lot, but it's one of those songs that like has easily, you know, stood the test of time because it's just so well written and so fucking heavy.
And I can't get over what a like weird melody that chorus is. Like it's just like, "Show me the power, child. I like to say that I'm like it's just all over the place for a commercial, I guess, radio rock song, if you want to think of it as that.
And yeah, it still gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah.
I'm feeling outshine.
I love when like the guitars like syncopate with his vocal deliveries in the second half. It's just so fucking good. Oh,
totally.
Shit.
And I don't mean to do a going in sequence sort of thing. We don't have to stick to it, but I mean, we have to talk about these first 4 songs, so we might as well. But like Slaves and Bulldozers.
Talk about my favorite.
Yep, Slaves and Bulldozers is my favorite song on this record.
I think it's mine too, actually.
It's up there. It's definitely up there.
It's I mean, it's close between that and like Room 1,000 Years Wide. Probably be
that's mine.
Yeah, there we go. We're on that level. But the riffage in Slaves and Bulldozers is truly intense. And I don't mean in terms of like attacking you, but I mean like holding you and seeping inside of you. Like it's a song about, I mean, ostensibly industry pressures, the superficiality of the music business. But it turns that into something that feels like a matter of life and death. I mean, again, I cannot emphasize Cornell's vocals enough. Now I know what you became. Like literally.
Oh my god, the screaming he does on this is just like somehow his screams are more unhinged than most other singers, yet also more like controlled. It's fucking mind-blowing.
Like it's almost like you get a sense of there's a real kind of like unreal pain in this song. Like it's a mournful pain as well, because he talks about like the nature of being a musician and the nature of like having to perform in a certain mode in order to get success, literally buying lies and stealing jokes and laughing every time I choke, and him coming to an understanding of why someone would completely fall apart and die even. I mean, you could read this as potentially being yet another song about Andrew Wood. I mean, there's another song on this record that I think Chris has directly said is about Andrew, which I think is Mind Riot, which we'll get to. But this song also kind of functions in that way, like it would work. It would not be a million miles out of place on like the Temple of the Dog record thematically, but just the way he hammers those lines is just unreal. Like it's unfucking real. And it's the most intense this record gets, I think.
There's not many songs I can think of that have an outro that goes as hard as this song does.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another thing I love about this song. And throughout this record, I love the guitar solos on this album.
Yeah, I was just going there myself.
Yeah,
they are fucking insane.
Yeah, because they're so like, of course there's there's the technical aspect of them, which is fantastic, and then the usage of wah, which again just like adds to the chaos. But another thing I love, this kind of a production thing, is that a lot of times the solos are like weirdly panned, so like they just kind of circle around your ears while you're listening to it, and it just adds to the kind of the chaos and almost a psychedelic feeling to these solos.
That's the production of the dude who did Deftones. All right.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing that makes all those records sound so dynamic. And he was doing it since 91.
And I mean, yeah. And just on the note of that solo as well, it's meaningful that Kim Thale has said that the solo in this song is his favorite solo he's ever performed. And his favorite solo to perform live as well, because it's not like restricted to a particular progression that he has to hit every time. It's just dissonant and wild.
Yep.
Like when the solo comes in, the first note, if you want to call it that he hits, is just a fucking squalling sound that is utterly unmusical. And then he kind of just explodes from there. And it's like, so it's almost like the metal guitar solo equivalent of like free jazz, the way he plays, because it's so like utterly
the
unbound.
End is like Bedlam and Goliath era Mars Volta.
It's so like
fucking
utterly
crazy.
unbound to any conventional structure or progression for a guitar solo. It's just fucking. I wrote in my notes, it sounds infected, which I think again is the effect that is that you get from, again, the effects that have been used and the pedals and all that sort of stuff. And and the tuning as well, which I'm sure plays a part in that doomy feel of this song as well. And
sorry, I was just going to say, like, you could have like a pretty standard guitar solo over an instrumental like this, but why would you when you can do this? Like,
exactly.
It adds, so like it's the part that needs to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so maximal. It's so great.
Yeah.
Speaking of maximal and great,
I mean, time for the big boy, like the biggest song on this record in terms of like
it's
outreach
Jesus
and
Christ pose.
Jesus Christ pose as well, which again, like it's fucking
like fucking Relationship of Command. It sounds like fucking Ark Arsenal, the build-up, and it's like
yeah,
you're just waiting for it, and you're just like, oh my god. And then the second like it's right at 1 minute when the song is just like it's like Metallica, but then Chris just comes in right after the guitar does, and you're just like, oh shit, we're going, here it goes.
I love
Jesus Christ pose. It's like one of his best vocal performances ever, and like absolutely, like, I mean, to say he's screaming at some points is just underselling it.
Yeah.
The way like the drums are playing, like you, Tyler, already mentioned,
Matt
like,
Cameron going
just playing
stupid.
just going just going ham on those toms, just and the guitars and the bass just like tremolo picking really fast just underneath.
Yes.
It gives the song like a brooding feel like, and then Chris over it, and then when it gets in the chorus, and like I need to be sad, it just God, like and those bends on the guitar too. Like
again, that
one of the most
dissonance as well.
exciting
Like
songs.
those dissonant moments are so thrilling. Like even like back to the start of the song where it's like that,
Yeah.
that's so like
this is like one of the most purely rhythmic songs I've ever heard in my life. Like the drums, the guitars, like everything just combines to make it feel like you are listening to a song that's like made of fucking lead. Like this is so just absolutely overbearingly crushing, and it's still so fucking catchy. Like I know every lyric to this fucking song.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, just to add to that, like if you think about it in the context as well, like the last song was about how like the music, being a musician and popular music and working through the industry can literally kill you. Like I see why you've been taken. And this is a song.
I swear to you, I would never feed you pain, but you're staring at me like I'm driving in the nails.
Yeah. And this is a song about people who take advantage of that superficiality to further themselves, and literally people who, pose and, as if they're experiencing some kind of real suffering when all they're doing is trying to, take advantage. And it's like this beautiful 1-2 punch of genuine like pain, and then pain that curdles into venom. And like by this point in the record, you're just utterly in the throes of Chris Cornell and where he wants to take you. It's just shit's
one of the best
amazing.
Lyrical moments on here too is, would it pay you more to walk on water than to wear a crown of thorns? It wouldn't pain me more to bury you rich than to bury you poor. Yeah. Fuck. That's the hardest shit I've ever heard. White boy's got bars.
Unreal.
It's so fucking good.
Just the way it ends with like layers of feedback. Just it comes
it's
full
psychedelic.
Circle. Like
it's so good. I mean, this whole album is like basically psychedelic in the way that like early Sabbath is, in the exact same way. And it benefits from it so much.
Honestly, it's very similar to like stoner metal in a way. Like
yeah, absolutely.
Just with all the psychedelic textures, but still just
your Mastodon comp earlier. I totally see that in lots of their stuff. They owe their career to this album. And of course, we go right into the next song, which just begins with "Whoa!" And I'm like, "Oh shit, let's go!" It's Look, I will be the first to admit that, like, as I said, this is my favorite album of 1991. I love this album so much. That said, there are definitely totemic highs on this album that some other songs on it just can't really compete with. And I must admit, Face Pollution is probably one of them. But also, when I'm listening to it, this is the most fun fucking song. And I don't give a shit that it's not as good as something like Jesus Christ Pose, because it fucking rips.
Yeah, I do want to shout out that even the songs I don't love the most on this record do have really interesting aspects to them. Like Face Pollution and Somewhere are both written by Ben Shepherd. I have musical credits to Ben Shepherd, and he brings a really interesting flavor to these songs. Like I didn't even notice them the first like 2 or 3 times I heard it, but like at the end of Face Pollution, you have these like horns that come in like buried in the mix that add this like totally awesomely
amazing,
fucking zany feel to it. The breakdown in the middle of this song is just nutso. Like it just goes, it just completely collapses, and I love that. And again, Cornell brings his entire pussy into the performance here. I don't feel like feeling
and
like
yelling.
You. Yeah, it's great.
Fucking, it's like
I don't feel like feeling. I don't feel like feeling.
Feeling this pollution.
And
I love that
it's like
ending.
it definitely it's a like an up tempo pace too, and like it's only 2 minutes long. So honestly, like this moment where they just kind of get the cut loose, like this has kind of been a grower for me. I still don't think it's as good as the first 4 tracks, obviously, but like for me anyway, this is just a song where the band gets to really like cut loose and be like genuinely instrumentally really fucking wild and unhinged for no other reason than to just do it. And frankly, I am more than okay with that.
Yeah, and you get like as well, like on a track like Somewhere, you have this, even though it's not a song that like has the same sort of like immediacy as some of the highs in this record. It still
Probably
has
my least favorite song on here.
It still has some like great little details that I love, like the chorus melody on this song that Cornell vocally manages to match alongside the guitar. It's just really nuts. Like it's just a really unconventional melody. I think the only thing I don't care for is just that the lyrics on this song, which again were written by Ben Shepherd, are a little too flowery for me compared to some of the other lyrics on the record. But I barely notice it when Cornell's going as apeshit as he is.
I cried.
Yeah,
Fuck, it's so good.
Yeah.
I like the way, even though I would agree that Somewhere is probably one of my least favorite tracks, I love the way it ends with kind of this like layered psychedelic outro, and it fades out, but then it tricks you and it fades back in.
Yeah.
Yes. And, I love that little detail. It's so great. So much a great fake out. Yeah. Like while it's on, it's just I'm 100% in it. It's my least favorite, but like again, this album's lesser moments are so much better than so many other bands' best moments, and I wholeheartedly think that.
This is such a weird reference point, but that fake out, fade out reminds me of all things, the Smiths song.
I knew it.
That joke isn't funny anymore, which is like one of my favorite Smiths songs, incidentally. Well, there's probably multiple Smith songs that do this, but I think of That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, which has this great, like really weird Johnny Marr guitar part that is like so addictive, and then it just kind of like fake fades out and then comes back in again to let you experience it for another minute. That's dope as shit.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought you were going to mention the song "Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others," which does the same thing at the beginning of the song.
Yeah, I don't like that song as much, unfortunately. But
yeah.
But that
the guitar on that song is great.
Yeah, but I dig.
We ain't talking about Smiths.
Yeah, no, I just had to bring Johnny Marr in there. I apologize for derailing there. Let's re-rail.
Perfectly fine. I mean, look, the album has kind of derailed itself a little bit at this point because we have Searching With My Good Eye Closed afterwards, which, like, what a fucking bizarre way to start your song than doing like a fucking animal speak and spell shit, which is so silly it borders on being bad. And then at the very end, the corny ass fucking like the devil says, like if what follows it wasn't the most harrowing scream I've heard on a metal record, I would think it was bad, but thankfully it is, so it gets a pass because my god, I'm like,
I cannot get enough of the guitar sound and just the general soundscape of this song. The guitar work is so surreal and intricate. The way it builds, especially in towards the finale of the song, where you have Cornell and Thale together on the guitars, just rumbling and scraping and screaming, and you have Chris himself just hollering, howling and tearing at the space around him. Again, he literally elevates this song to a god level through just sheer bravura. He brings it there. Like I love it. It's I mean, I don't have anything much more unique to say, but
pure Black Sabbath worship, and I am so fucking here for it. I mean, when he holds the note on the "Is it the sky?" he sounds like golden era Ozzy. It's oh god, and just this sound is so expansive and enormous. It's like you're just like flying through a fucking interdimensional hallway. This shit fucking owns.
Again, it's truly like fucking. It's like guitars, the guitars and the way that they and Cornell's vocals and those guitars are working together. It's truly like almost psychedelic. It's totally fucking. It takes you to a different place when you're listening to it with good headphones on. Like it literally feels like you're being transported upward somewhere, like literally to the sky, as he says. Like God, and
right when that groove comes in, it's just an immediate like just head nodder. I'm just
That
immediately
last
feeling
minute,
that groove.
the song just loses its fucking mind.
I want to say, like, in my notes, I think almost every track I wrote like something about Chris just killing the ending of the song.
Oh,
just
yeah,
absolutely slaying, just going off. And this is one of the best examples. Like, he's just wailing, and it's just so satisfying to hear.
Good.
Then you get Room 1,000 Years Wide, which one of my favorite individual moments on this record is just that out of nowhere scream that comes in at the very beginning as the riff.
Yep.
This song's incidentally, this song is one of the ones that starts the most like, whoa, okay, shit, we're in here now, of any song on this record. And he has this blood curdling scream that doesn't even sound like him, to be honest. It sounds like a proper death metal vocalist. And then the riffs in the song are some of the record's, the whole album's most memorable, I think. Intense, brooding, melodic. The lyrics to this song were actually written by Kim Thale, and he, through his words, imbues Chris with the spirit of this like ageless, immortal being that's cursed to live forever and is weary with the experiences of eternity. Like it's literally, you feel like you're privy to the world of a god on this song.
Yeah. Like the human mind trying to transcribe infinity, and then this song came out.
Yeah.
It's fucking, oh God, it's so unbelievable. Like, and it's just so like, it's like pained and torturous. Like you feel like it's taking a legitimate toll on Chris, and he's just repeating over and over again that just tomorrow begets tomorrow over and over and over and over again. And that fucking guitar on this is just I don't have a superlative. It's sexual what this song does to me, frankly.
Yeah, like the way that Thale and Cornell together get at this idea of like the passage of time being this kind of like deadening thing, like with those words, tomorrow beget tomorrow, is like so powerful. Like you just get a real sense of like day after day of anonymous days passing, and you just being like a vehicle.
Wow, living forever sounds like shit.
But also like it works as like, it's about living forever, and it's about that. You know, but it also works as a song about depression as well, like a song about you know, being inside your mind, a room 1,000 years wide, and literally just being subject to day after day of like dullness and being unable to move. And it's like really powerful.
And then of course fucking saxophone.
Oh yeah. Saxophone.
I mean, and who in the fuck was doing this shit in 1991? And it sounds like it literally just sounds like fucking Pharoah Sanders Karma shit. It is squealing and squonking at the end of this fucking song. Oh God, it's so fucking good.
Yeah.
This is a flawless rock song, to say the least.
Yes.
I mean, just that riff, like the riff actually reminds me of Failure's Fantastic Planet. Like it'd be something that they would do later. Obviously this was before, so I'm wondering if this, I feel like this could have been an influence on them.
Totally.
Yeah, even though they were around the same time. But God, this song, like the layers of guitar, like with that like heavy riff, obviously there's also there's like these harmonics that they're doing that just pop in, just suddenly like do a ting 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 ting, like clangy kind of sound.
Yeah.
That come in with that, and I love that. I also love in the verse when one of the guitars just is like bending on this note, just adding so much tension, just this like, man, it's, and then I don't think any singer has sang the word tomorrow better than Chris Cornell. Like, because at the end, he's just, again, just wailing on that. And
here it is.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney forever owns the word yesterday. Billy Corgan forever owns the word today. And Chris Cornell forever owns the word tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I agree.
For Billy Corgan, I thought you were going to say tonight.
I
yeah.
also thought you were going to
Yeah.
say that too.
Yeah, today and tonight. I mean, that's the Siamese dream hoe versus the melancholy hoe being on display right here. Anyway,
hey, fellow melancholy one.
I'm
real
actually
ones remember.
I'm actually more of a Siamese
Well,
dream
I
guy
guess I'm
myself,
alone
but sorry.
well,
But
Fine.
you okay?
Anyway.
so anyway,
fucking Mind Riot.
Mind Riot, which is interesting for a number of reasons. The first of which being that this is a song where, according to Kim Thale, based on an idea from Jeff Ament of Pearl Jam, this was a song where every string was tuned to E on the guitars. So it gives it this, and I don't know much about guitars, I just know that. So maybe Connor, you can speak to the effect that has. But like, to me, it creates an incredibly hypnotic sound. I don't know if hypnotic's the best word to describe it, but it's like this song is like so immersive and like such a soundscape of a track. And also worth noting as well is that it is a tribute to Andrew Wood. It is a song about, the experience of grief, and describing that as, and using the idea of a mind riot, of a frenzied brain, as a representation of the state in the wake of losing your best friend, or one of your best friends anyway. And also the kind of weird distancing, like he says somebody's best friend died, but I've been caught in a mind riot, like the sense of dissociation in the song, that the sound of it captures beautifully as well. I love the whole sound of this song. I find it to be so unique on the album. And again, Chris is just selling it like only Chris can.
Yeah. To speak on like that, the guitar specifically on this song, it's obviously like very unique from the rest of the album. And there are like other songs that have, like, these guys aren't necessarily the first to tune every string to the same note, which they even say in a quote that I read one. But when you do that, it gives like you said, it's kind of a hypnotic feel, and it's kind of drony, because when you're playing all those strings that have the same note, you get kind of this, you just like hear that note a lot, but in different ways because they're different strings. So it gives kind of this drony feel to it, as well as it's kind of bouncy in the way that they kind of hammer on, pull off and stuff. So it's a really unique riff.
I described it as like monotonous in a good way. Like it again, I think that's just hypnotic, monotonous in a good way. But I love the way that Cornell is a vocalist. He's like howling on the song, and it's such a sharp counterpoint to that sound. Like he's just so like dissonant with it. Like he's just completely unhinged on the song, and I love that so much.
Yeah, and when you get like weird, like open tunings, or like tuning all the same string, the style of music that originally kind of did that the most at first was folk music, and I always felt like the song had kind of a folky feeling to it in a weird way.
No, I totally get that. So that brings us to the final stretch of the record as well. So you have Drawing Flies, which is kind of like a quick and raw, punkier track that
Black Midi listened to this song and said, "Hey, let's do this," and then that's their entire career.
Yeah, again, another song where you have like really weird incorporations of like horns, like there's saxophone and trumpet on this track.
Sick.
And it's just, and again, like it's my only comment on it is that it feels like a bit of a weird outlier on a record that's so like immersive, because it was just kind of like so like such a raw, sharp attack. But I mean, it's all right. It's decent.
I think it's so much fucking fun. I love this song.
Right on. I'm at this point though much heavier drawn to the last couple of tracks on this
Holy
record,
Water and New Damage,
which I think Holy Water is another song where it's the strings tuned to B, again like the opening track, and it has that similar sort of effect in terms of the riff and the sound, And it's again, I don't have much novel to say at this point, but it's utterly just doomy as shit. This idea, there's some really kind of like dark imagery in this song as well. Like the holy Bible on my nightstand as I'm raped by a monkey circus freak. Like this idea of
trust in me.
Like bloody murder is the best I've heard her scream. Holy devil in the flesh, some might believe. Like, I guess he's obviously drawing some religious references here and talking about, I guess, the impact of a doctrine and stuff. But I mean, I'm just totally taken by Cornell's vocal performance, and there's the general sound of it. And that's something that carries over into the closer as well.
The loud echoey guitars just before the 2-minute point on this song, where it's just like just like, oh yeah, that's the good.
Yeah, I love the, like, it sounds like the lead guitar in this on Holy Water specifically it sounds like a tape reverse effect, which gives this, it's because when you have like this like reverse effect on a guitar, it kind of cuts away that traditional attack, and it gives this like almost eerie, again, to keep using this word, psychedelic sound to it, where it's, instead of like bam, it's more like yeah, and it kind of creeps up on you. It gives the song, I think it really adds to the dark imagery that they're going for on this track.
Totally. Yeah, and then New Damage, which is
New Damage,
low key one of my faves on the record. TBF, TBH.
One of the
I mean,
best heavy metal album closers of all time, if not the best.
What I would describe this song as is utterly apocalyptic, especially the end of this song, which is to me the like encapsulation kind of what you said earlier of like Chris coming in and just murdering the vocal at the ends of the songs, particularly like just making sure the songs always end in this place of like total captivating, surreal intensity. And I think that this is like a beautiful, pristine example of that. Like, it literally sounds like total fucking immolation. Like, everything is burning on this song, and the intensity is unreal. And the way he says like "get out before you drown" like over and over and over and over again, like he's like you, if you fucking take any fucking thing away from any fucking thing he says on this record, it better fucking be that you need to get the fuck out before you fucking drown. That's how intense it is. And I love as well that I think either Chris or Kim said that this is basically a song about Reagan era America and like living in a sort of state of compromised freedom and so there's a political
very tangential connection to Nirvana there. Sort of
absolutely.
The same spirit imbuing the music.
And he literally says like a new world order, a new word for hate. Like it's and what I love is like, or not what I love, but like I really kind of like, oh shit, goosebumps moment was when like I put together that like this song ends with Chris saying "get out before you drown" like 50 times, and then fucking Super Unknown opens with "let me drown," where it's like it's like answering that song. Like "let me drown" is like an answer to this song, and it's like gut-wrenching as well. Like fuck.
The guitars at the end of this song sound like fucking lasers. I don't even know how it's possible for them to sound like that, and they just do. You just did the Super Unknown album cover.
So they just came and did this. They just inflicted this on us, and we're expected to take it.
And I will.
Absolutely, gladly, I'll take it.
Fucking that meme, just like daddy, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Garden.
Senior.
Yeah.
Live from the garden.
Like the garden.
When Eddie Vedder said "I will walk into your garden" on 10, he meant like listening to this album. Anyway.
Hell yeah. And my fucking garden, Eddie.
So yeah, to bring it all full circle, we've covered a lot of records that have been influential or integral in the grunge wave of 91. I think it's kind of fitting that this ends up being the last of the big grunge records that we cover in this retrospective, because like it may not be the cultural peak, it may not be the I guess peak of incisive commentary or whatever. It may not be the peak
I'd say
of
the deep
emotion
cut favorite though.
But like it is the record that I think has the biggest staying power in terms of like just putting it on and getting a purely profound musical experience from front to back. I mean, alongside
it contains those bits of those other albums too. It contains little parts of the anarchic, uprising parts of Nirvana and Nevermind. It contains that sort of narrative and deep, like bottom of the pit darkness that 10 might have, or the instrumental insanity of something like Alice in Chains. It feels like this is
the
like
wah wah, the just intense wah wah that's all over like Facelift as well.
Exactly. I once heard Lane Staley described as a singer who is trying his best to sound exactly like the guitar, and I've never forgotten that.
Yeah. Yep. Well, here we are. We will actually.
Hell yeah!
It's unreal that we haven't talked about Alice in Chains at some point either. My vote, obviously, the obvious contender seems like Jar of Flies. Although I think that a cool record to talk about would be the self-titled, actually, which is, I think, their
self-titled
best.
Or Facelift. Those get kind of under-discussed.
Yeah, I think that the self-titled is their best LP front to back, if we're counting Flies as an EP. And yet I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. And also reflecting the fact that I didn't listen to it until this year when Morgan told me I really had to fucking listen to it. Mm-hmm. And he was right, because of course he was. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we're getting further afield here. Soundgarden's Badmotorfinger then. Favorite tracks and ratings.
So now you know.
So now we know. And now you know, and now you can go. And actually, something cool for our listeners to do in the comments is tell us how you would rank the big grunge releases of 1991. Now that we've talked about all of them, we might as well do that just for fun. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So I'll go first. My ranking would be, this is the best one, I think, very narrowly followed by Pearl Jam's 10. Then I would put Nevermind in behind that, and then I would put Temple of the Dog in honorable fourth place because it's a really good album. That's how I would rank them anyway. I don't know if maybe you guys would agree with me, or maybe you guys would disagree, but I don't know.
I hate to admit it, but I have not heard Temple of the Dog yet.
Oh man, you've got to hear, like, it's Reach Down and Say Hello to Heaven and Hunger Strike. Just the first three songs on that record are like some of Cornell's best vocals ever, including this record. Like, we gotta reach down and pick the crowd up. It's so good. The way he sings it. That's forever in my head. And pick the crowd up. The way he does that. And Reach Down essentially is a 10-minute guitar solo. So I mean, what the fuck is not to love?
Hell yeah.
And then Hunger Strike has Cornell and Eddie Vedder together, and maybe the best Eddie Vedder vocal performance ever. Like, and I'm hungry. I can't communicate. Listen to that anyway. But yeah. How would you rank
11 seconds? Nice.
Connor, how would you rank the grunge records of 91?
As of right now, this one, number 1, number 2 would be 10, and number 3 would be Nevermind.
Yeah, and I know that I already know Jake agrees with both of us on that.
Yeah.
So we're not
that is well, that's my ranking as well. Yeah.
But yeah. Well then, favorite tracks and ratings for obviously, let us know what you think at home, the viewer.
Yes, please.
What you think. But yeah, favorite tracks and ratings for Badmotorfinger. Let's do reverse order. And Connor, you can go first.
Okay. Let's see. My 3 favorite tracks. Number 1, Slaves and Bulldozers. Number
That's
2,
right.
I'll go with it's tough now. I thought I knew this, but I'm like changing it last minute. I'll go with Jesus Christ Pose, and
Yeah.
then I would go with probably Rusty Cage. My least favorite is Drawing Flies, which I didn't really mention, but I'm not a huge fan of that song, to be honest. I would give the album. I was gonna give it an 8.5, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and give it an extra 0.5. Go with a 9.
As she deserves.
That's
Yes.
that's good. That's good.
Let me go change it right now.
My 3 favorite tracks are Slaves and Bulldozers, Room 1,000 Years Wide, and it's a coin flip between Outshined and New Damage. And I'm gonna say Outshined. Just fuck it. It could be either. And the record, least favorite track is probably Drawing Flies as well. And I give it a 9.5. I don't have any info on this from Morgan, but I know that Morgan considers this a 10 out of 10 record, so I'll just plug that in right now. I don't know if August has rated it yet, so we'll leave that. Maybe he can report back next week. Jake.
My 3 favorite songs are, since you went for Outshined, which, a them of culture, but I will take your place and say New Damage and Jesus Christ Pose and Room 1,000 Years Wide. Least favorite, it's somewhere, but like, who gives a fuck? Because this is a 10. This is the best album of 1991. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, shit, let's fucking go. So that is an average of 9.6, which is, I believe, the highest average of any of the records that we've done on the retrospective so far, closely followed by Spiderland by Slint, which got a 9.5 average, and I believe also Pearl Jam's 10 got a 9.1 average, but the Laughing Stock by Talk Talk got a 9.4 as well. So it's been some pretty premium cream of the crop stuff. And so next week on the 1991 retrospective, I believe I toiled between whether to get the 3 rock albums of this particular stretch out of the way or not, but I thought it might be cool to break them up. So next week we're going to be doing the Tribe Called Quest's The Low End Theory, which is going to be really fun to talk about. So stick around for that next week as well. And of course, make sure you go and check out the other videos, as Jake has already instructed you to do. Make sure you go and check out the other videos in our retrospective series. That playlist will be linked in the description below, so don't miss it. Let us know what you think of Soundgarden's Badmotorfinger. Is it your favorite Soundgarden record? Do you prefer Super Unknown, or are you a wild card who has a different favorite? Either way, let us know. Again, we're all big fans and we love hearing from other people what they think. So make sure you get in those comments. Make sure you like as well. Make sure you sub if you haven't already done that. It means a lot to us, helps us out. And that's basically it. Rock over London, rock on Chicago, United Airlines, fly the friendly skies.